No one, including the creators of this tool, have any idea on how to actually release the psoas. So as an actual professional in releasing tight muscles, I'm not only going to show you how I release the psoas and get rid of the chronic pain that comes with it, but I'm also going to show you how you can do it at home without this piece of plastic and without years of education. Who am I? My name's Adam. I'm the owner of TrainMassage.com, and I've helped hundreds of people get rid of their chronic pain by releasing their psoas specifically. Now, first off, let's actually just address why this is not a great tool when it comes to trying to release your psoas, also known as your hip flexor. Yes, there are several hip flexors, but this is the one that people always talk about when they say hip flexor, right? Not talking about the quads. First off, let's just look at the size of this thing, right? Even though this is not the actual the actual one that started this whole trend, this is very similar in terms of size and shape and gives us an idea of what they all pretty much are trying to do, what they all look like. And as you can see here, it is extremely wide here. If we put this on the actual body, it is basically on the two sides of your abs, which is not where the psoas is. Your psoas is actually located on the spine, and yes, if you want to play devil's advocate, it goes out into the hips. So if you're aiming this a lot lower, sure, you could technically hit it. So I will play devil's advocate and say if you're hitting the very specific spot on the body and you know where to target it, where it actually branches out, then you have the ability to maybe hit the psoas. But this brings me on to the next problem. The way everyone uses this tool lying face down prone is the worst possible position you can try to release your psoas. Here's why. First off, let's talk about tensing, okay? Just tensing in general. If this was a great position, well, it's not, because one, you're trying to release a muscle, but yet you're tensing because of all that pressure by laying flat on it, right? You're either tensing in the stomach, which you shouldn't be doing if you're trying to release a muscle. Think about that, that's the complete opposite. Or you're tensing in both your arms and your legs, both sides of the body, and what's in between is the core here. So you're still technically creating tension here by pulling tension up towards the chest and towards the legs, which is where you're trying to stabilize, right? And let's be real, a lot of us don't have that kind of coordination where we can totally relax the core but keep the chest and the legs super strong and stable. A lot of us don't have that ability. But the third and main reason this doesn't work is because you have the core, the actual rectus abdominis muscles on top of it, getting stretched out and preventing that insertion, preventing that depth you need to release your psoas. See, all you're doing here is potentially releasing your abs, maybe. Your abs do need to get released, by the way. If you've never had them massaged, try massaging them, feels great. But when it comes to these psoas, you gotta get deep enough to actually work on it. It is near the spine, remember that, okay? And just trying to hit the top surface isn't close enough to get near that spine. Plus, with the whole body stretched out, you cannot penetrate the stomach in general because it is stretched out to its limit. The way you have to think about this is you have to remember the actions of the muscle. One of my frameworks for having to release a muscle includes figuring out if the muscle is deep or not, because that plays a role in how you actually target it and release it. And in this case, if this muscle is deep versus a superficial muscle, then you have to create what's called a passive contraction on the superficial muscle to get deeper. So here's how you visualize this. Imagine two bands stretched out and you trying to get from the top, penetrating the top band which is stretched and trying to touch the bottom one. Obviously it is very difficult because that band is stretched out, right? But what if the band was contracted or shortened? It was in its relaxed state. Well, now you have room in that top band to get deep enough to penetrate, to reach the deeper band here, the deeper muscles. So basically what you need to do in order to get deep into the psoas specifically is you need to create some sort of hip flexion as a starting point. And prone is definitely not hip extension or flexion, it's extension. So basically what you want to do here is you want to flip your body 180 and you want to start on your back with your knees up and your feet planted in a passive hip flexion state. This right here is going to shorten the core and is going to do it in a passive way, which means it's not contracting, but it's still shortened, allowing wiggle room for you to get deeper into the psoas. Now, one thing I did forget to talk about too as well when it comes to these tools is that they're also not angled properly to get into the psoas specifically. You see here they go straight up and down, but when you press into them, when you are lying on them, which you're not supposed to be, right, you need to come in at an angle, at a 45-degree angle-ish towards the spine in order to actually get the psoas, but this goes straight up and down. I don't know why I did that. But now my fourth reason why this is a terrible position and a terrible way to use this damn tool is because you can't even confirm you're on the psoas muscle to begin with. You see, your psoas muscle specifically is the only hip flexor in the stomach region. What that means is it's the only muscle that will contract when you flex the hips. So you can actually confirm you're on this muscle, or at least in the region of it, by flexing the hips, moving the legs up and down, and you will feel that muscle shorten. You will feel something contract, which is the psoas. Cool? Now I actually started talking about how to properly release it as I was talking shit about the other tool here. So let's just kind of go right into that. So when you need to release your psoas, you can do it with something as simple as a block, a ball, and a yoga block. And having these two combinations, one as leverage and one is your pressure. Okay, this is what you use to put in your stomach. You use this to put on top to add leverage in order for you to actually press down into your stomach and work on the psoas muscle. Now, if you never worked on the psoas in general, what does it actually feel like? What are you looking for when it comes to trying to release this? Well, when you are pressing down into your core, right, and you are keeping the body relaxed, after you get through the intestines and all that, right, which isn't very thick, then what you're feeling for is essentially a rolled up towel where it has a little bit of a speed bump almost. So you have the spine and then you have almost like this little bumpy area, this speed bump almost like the top of a rolled up towel feeling inside the body. It's kind of the best way I could describe it here. And by kind of feeling for that, you know you're in that area of the psoas, and then you can confirm you're on that muscle by flexing that hip straight up, or in this case, when you're laying on your back, straight to your head, and that will confirm or have you feel the psoas contract. Once you know you're on it, right, that's when you can actually begin working on it. It's not until you actually can get into that depth. You have to let the body let you in. You can't just force your way in the way that other tool wants you to. And once you're able to get in, then that's when you start doing your techniques, right? You do your static pressure, your micro movements, your pin and stretches, which is my favorites, and any other little fun techniques you can think of. And for a lot of you, this will probably be one of the real first times you can actually work on your psoas. You did it right. And if that is the case, expect some pain, but don't expect too much pain, or don't allow yourself to get that deep into the pain levels to the point where it is painful and uncomfortable, right? We want uncomfortable but not painful. We want it to be uncomfortable but still able to breathe throughout that pain, to relax so we can release, but we don't want it to be too painful to the point we're tensing now and now we're fighting back. You have to have enough pressure to make actual change in the tissues, and sadly when you're working on tight muscles, which includes tight fascia, that also means you have a lot of sensory nerves. So expect those pain levels to be up, you know, between a 6 to an 8, maybe even a 9, as long as you're able to breathe and you're able to create enough pressure to cause a change, right? That's your sweet spot for pressure. Hopefully that makes sense. If you do have a tool just like this and you still do want to use it, all you need to do is just flip it upside down and go straight down into your core, but use one side at a time. So if I am working on my left side here, I'm going to use the right side of the tool so that this side is out of the way of the body. And then I can work on one psoas at a time and not really try to target both. I'm controlling the pressure. My hips are flexed and I can actually feel it and I can confirm I'm on it when I am in a supine position instead of a prone position. And some other tips when you are trying to release your psoas, make sure you're trying to work on it from around the belly down, the belly button down. It is okay if you work a little higher. If you know what you're doing, just be slower and careful. And make sure you're going in at about a 45-degree angle. I do like to try to push the core away from the side I am working on before I try to dive in. This allows me to be able to basically get into the tissues a little more. And because the tissues are relaxed, it's a lot easier to move these tissues out of the way to get in there with the ball or whatever tool you're using.